In the dead of night, a lone MiG-29 breached the airspace. Minutes later, a military convoy valued at tens of millions of dollars simply ceased to exist. 4 a.m. The Belgorod corridor erupts. A spear of white fire descends from 28,000 feet. A Russian outpost logs a massive thermal bloom, then the definitive electronic signature of AGM-88E missiles. They scream downward at nearly Mach 1.8, targeting a column of troops concealed by the forest. The initial detonation does more than shatter the silence. It obliterates the electronic defense systems, shielding a formation over 800 meters long, a target carrying advanced artillery weapons valued at over $83 million. Radar consoles flood with static. Warning sirens wail across the sector as the realities of modern warfare unfold. Blue 117, the solitary MiG-29, banks into a steep dive. This is the first move in a chain reaction the ground soldiers were not prepared for. Before this military update continues, if you were watching that first strike rip through the darkness, what would your next move be? Leave your war analysis in the comments. 3 a.m. The Belgorod corridor is still shrouded in a thin layer of mist. The ground is hard, the air cold. The forest canopy is a black, frozen sea. But far above, at 21,000 feet, something cuts through the stillness. A single thermal ghost appears on a Russian early warning radar. It's faint, unstable. The system dismisses it as atmospheric clutter. The operators squint at their screens. Uncertainty hangs in the command post. For 7 seconds, the contact is gone. Then it returns. Sharper this time, too deliberate for nature. Not a bird, not interference. It is a MiG-29, a signature of the enemy Air Force. The jet is a ghost, flying in full passive mode. All active sensors are cold. It relies solely on its optical infrared suite. A reconnaissance run masked as a phantom, showcasing superior defense technology. No weapons are fired. No sound barrier is broken. Only the silent collection of electronic signatures hidden beneath the forest. By the time the Russian army realized what it was far too late. A Pantsir S-2 battery roars to life, launching two 57E6 interceptors into the black. The missiles ascend with brutal speed. They carve twin trails of fire into the sky. But at 8,000 feet, the MiG-29 executes a sharp displacement roll, slipping sideways through the radar lobe. Both missiles overshoot, detonating harmlessly in the upper atmosphere. No celebration, no return fire from these modern weapons. Just a lone jet banking back toward the horizon. But before vanishing, its sensors locked onto something critical for this global conflict. A thermal ribbon, nearly 600 meters long. The unmistakable heat signature of multiple heavy vehicles moving through the Belgorod woods. Engines running low, movement disciplined, formation tight. The high command in Kyiv had been waiting for this intelligence. At 3 a.m., Operation Falling Horizon activates. It moves from planning to execution. The first line in a much larger war has just been drawn. 4 a.m. The eastern edge of Belgorod ignites. 3 vertical columns of exhaust tear through the low clouds, like lances of white flame. Russian military command reacted with surprising speed. A flight of 3 Su-30 SM interceptors screams into the night. Their powerful Barzar radar systems sweep the corridor, hunting for the intruder that bypassed their defense. But they are not alone. 2 MiG-29s from Ukraine's 114th Tactical Aviation Brigade are already there. They cross the border at 24,000 feet. Their staggered formation designed to fool early warning filters. Their payload contained no heavy ordnance. Only lightning reconnaissance pods, silent eyes designed to pierce the darkness and reveal the enemy's movements. Below the tree line, the Russians open fire. 2 R-77 air-to-air missiles launch, accelerating to nearly Mach 3. They close the distance in heartbeats, but the MiG pilots perform a synchronized brake, plunging from 20,000 feet to just 4,000 in under 9 seconds. The Russian radar lock shatters instantly. This wasn't a dogfight. It was a battle for intelligence, a key part of military news, and Ukraine won. Through the fog, the lightning pods captured an undeniable pattern. A convoy, almost 800 meters long. It's moving at 48 miles per hour, anchored by a command vehicle. The target was confirmed. Short bursts of encrypted traffic pulsed from the column. More alarming, a mobile electronic warfare unit followed, its antenna broadcasting narrowband jamming every 11 seconds. The signal was clear. This convoy was high value, too valuable for the army to let it reach the front lines. On the radar screens, the formation emerged piece by piece. The question for war analysis experts was simple. What was the enemy's next move? At 0400 hours, data flooded the command center in Kyiv. In the low glow of the operations room, one conclusion became undeniable. The decisive blow, the strike that would define the morning's battle, would be delivered by a lone MiG-29, an Air Force asset lurking in the shadows. Chapter 3. 0400. Over Belgorod, the upper atmosphere vibrated, a low rising hum. A single aircraft climbing through a dark corridor of clouds. MiG-29. Call sign Blue 117, running silent. It carried a single military purpose. The jet leveled off at 28,000 feet, its nose aimed squarely at a stretch of forest. Below, the convoy crawled in a rigid line of troops. The next few moments would dictate the next 12 hours of warfare across the entire sector, a pivotal moment in this global conflict. Below the canopy, the formation was larger than anticipated. 14 PLZ-05 self-propelled guns, each over 30 tons. 22 logistics carriers, heavy with ammunition and fuel drums. And the linchpin, one mobile EW truck, pulsing its signal across a 40-kilometer radius. The combined value was staggering, over $83 million in modern weapons. They advanced through a quiet supply corridor. Up above, Blue 117's defense systems acquired their target. The EW vehicle was first. The jet snapped into a 65-degree dive. Airspeed screamed past 600 knots. At 13,000 feet, the pilot unleashed two AG-M88E missiles. They streaked downward, perfectly aligned. A luminous ripple tore through the valley. The EW truck's emissions went silent. The convoy was now electronically blind. The MiG didn't break off. It pressed the attack, dropping to 1,000 feet. Blue 117 armed a cluster of JDAM-ER weapons. Each precision munition was programmed with a distinct thermal signature. The data was extracted from reconnaissance drone feeds. 4 explosions tore across the convoy's axis. The formation shattered into isolated pockets of soldiers. Engines died. Movement ceased. The road became a junkyard of disabled machinery. A steel serpent, trapped under a shroud of drifting smoke. Russian forces attempted a counter. A Ka-52 lifted from a nearby base, its thermal sensors hunting for the attacker. But the interference from the AGM-88s generated a wandering, blind sector, forcing the helicopter to retreat rather than risk the unstable corridor. In less than 180 seconds, the operation's decisive strike had concluded. The tree line glowed with rising columns of heat. The convoy, once a symbol of power, was now wreckage, its momentum broken, its purpose erased by superior defense technology. Blue 117 climbed back into the silent sky, leaving behind the opening shockwave of a new phase in this war. A battle that was far from over. 0400. A muted haze drifted over the Belgorod tree line, rising in long, wavering pillars of smoke. The strike from Blue 117 was over in just 3 minutes. The aftermath felt like an eternity. A key military update for commanders on both sides. Heat signatures pulsed across the valley floor. A half-kilometer arc of burning metal, every signature a ghost captured by orbiting reconnaissance satellites. The region's electromagnetic map had been violently redrawn. Russian command reacted instantly. An Il-20M electronic intelligence aircraft was scrambled. It launched from Belgorod north, climbing to 22,000 feet. Its antennas swept in a wide search pattern. But every pass returned corrupted telemetry. The ghost of the destroyed EW vehicle remained, an unstable corridor of static. It bent signals, creating pockets of blind airspace for the Navy and Marines to monitor. A dead zone stretching more than 11 kilometers along the forest's edge. Ukraine's military took advantage of the opening. A second pair of MiG-29s entered the fray. Call signs Gray 14 and Gray 21. They crossed into the sector at medium altitude, covering Blue 117's egress route. Flying top cover above the strike zone, their radars ran on low probability of intercept modes, feeding a constant stream of targeting data back to a command node near Kharkiv. The modern warfare chess match continued. The battlefield was a landscape of fractured metal. Silhouettes bled heat into the morning air. No movement, no coordination. The Russian Air Force scrambled to reclaim the sky. A Sukhoi 34 clawed into the sky from a southern airbase. Its payload, precision glide weapons. The mission? Hunt and neutralize any remaining Ukrainian aircraft. But as it neared the electronic warfare zone, its sensors began to fail. A flicker on the screen. Then, total blackout. The crew was flying blind, forced to pull back. They would not risk their advanced aircraft in a corrupted airspace. For a moment, the sky belonged to no one. A contested zone in a brutal war. An empty void, carved out by a single devastating strike. In Kiev, inside a darkened operations room, analysts began reconstructing the satellite feed frame by painstaking frame. The data revealed a ghost network, signal gaps, shifting thermal plumes, erratic comms. This war analysis suggested the convoy's annihilation was just the opening move, the first crack in a much larger collapse of their defense. The next phase of this global conflict wasn't about one attack, it was about the aftershock. A ripple effect, tightening like a noose around the entire northern front. 0500 hours. The tactical map shifted, a change not seen in weeks. Not from territory gained, but from something lost. A convoy, valued at over $83 million, had simply vanished from the board. The loss sent a shockwave through the Russian military's northern supply lines, a snapped cable. In the Belgorod sector, frontline troops felt it first. Artillery crews, awaiting PLZ-05 reinforcements, heard only static. Encrypted channels, which should have been active every 30 minutes, were dead. Drone operators sweeping the Pisky-Vovchansk corridor logged 27 signal dropouts in a single hour. An anomaly. The kind you see when a command node is vaporized. Ground radar along the Karacha belt flickered. Faint gaps appeared where solid coverage used to be. The Ukrainian army saw the opening. Recon teams pushed forward. They advanced 1, then 2 kilometers into the contested buffer zone. Grid squares, static for months, were now open. They found what the retreating soldiers left behind: abandoned fuel caches. The ground was a mess of panicked tire tracks. The airwaves, a cacophony of broken radio discipline. This wasn't a coordinated army. It was a sector in collapse. And in Moscow, the next phase of this modern warfare was being drawn. The shock was profound. Internal reports circulated quietly. Concerns that their defense technology was too vulnerable to aerial electronic attacks. Questions about compromised routes, about failed intelligence, and then the most damning question of all, one that challenged their modern warfare doctrine. How does an entire logistics column disappear without a single distress transmission? For Russia's Northern Command, this was a catastrophic failure. This wasn't just about equipment, it was about timing. That destroyed convoy was scheduled to reinforce the Kharkiv line, a critical point in the ongoing warfare. The deadline was 12 hours. Without those modern weapons, artillery parity evaporated. Ukrainian forces, using older systems, seized the advantage. Their well-coordinated batteries opened up a temporary fire superiority across a 12-kilometer stretch of the front. A gap in the enemy's defense systems was now a kill zone. On screens in Kiev, analysts traced the cascading effects: comms, blackouts, battalions redeploying in panic, supply intervals slowing to a crawl. The pattern was unmistakable. The deadline was 12 hours. Without those modern weapons, artillery parity evaporated. Ukrainian forces, using older systems, seized the advantage. The deadline was 12 hours. Without those modern weapons, artillery parity evaporated. Ukrainian forces, using older systems, seized the advantage. The strike from Blue 117 hadn't just ended a mission. It had tilted the entire battle space. And this military update was far from over. It is punctuated by dark, metallic husks cooling in the morning mist. No engine heat, no signs of life, just a broken line where a supply artery used to be. For Russian command, the reality hit before the images even finished downloading. The implications cascaded through 3 separate districts. Artillery schedules fell behind by 20, then 40 minutes, an unthinkable delay during peak operations. Fuel convoys rerouted saw their transit times double. Even short-range comms hubs were out of sync. 46 mismatched timestamps in a single hour. The network was fracturing. This military news spelled disaster, proof that the Northern Control Network was failing. And from their command centers, Ukraine's military monitored each anomaly in silence. In Kyiv's Joint Operations Center, the screens told a story of absence. A critical war analysis showed how the ghost of one PLZ-5 battalion redrew the entire northern front. The guns fell silent. Without fresh weapons and ammunition, the Russian army's batteries cut their fire rate by nearly 30%, creating a fatal gap in their warfare strategy. Ukrainian troops exploited the silence. They pushed into lightly held ridges. The gains were small, measured in hundreds of meters, but for these soldiers, it was a breakthrough on a long frozen sector of the war. The political shockwave traveled faster than any round. In Moscow, senior military officers confronted a brutal truth. Their first major delivery of foreign artillery had vanished, gone, before firing a single shot. This military news sparked urgent questions about routing, about the failure of their defense technology, about the inherent weakness of their complex supply chains. There were no immediate answers. Only one stark reality emerged from this global conflict. A lone MiG-29, a Spectre from the Ukrainian Air Force, had surgically dismantled a logistical bridge valued at over $83 million. It forced a complete recalibration of the northern campaign. This military update wasn't about overwhelming force. It was about timing, precision, and a deep understanding of how fragile the arteries of modern warfare truly are. As the sun rose, the horizon of the conflict had undeniably shifted. As dawn illuminated the northern corridor, the final satellite frames confirmed it all. One precise strike, using modern weapons, had fractured a vital supply line. An advance was halted. An entire sector was forced to reset its defense systems. A single Air Force asset had shifted the balance of power without ever being seen. In this new era of warfare, as you witness these events, which moment defines the battlefield for you?